Welcome back. In this lecture, we will be exploring what are the features of Spring Framework and what are the components in Spring Framework. As already known, Spring is a general purpose framework. So why we call it as a general purpose framework, we will get to know in next few seconds. We also call Spring as framework of frameworks. Okay. So what are the major components in Spring Framework? See, as we see in this diagram, the main component or the main heart of the Spring Framework is the core container, where there are core features like beans, context, spell, etc. See, when you are new to the Spring Framework, you may feel some difficulty in exploring the features. That is quite normal. It may take multiple times to understand the concept, to remember it. That is quite natural. So do not worry. Please listen the lectures, practice the examples again and again. Okay, right. So I want to share these details before going forward. Okay, let us go back to the Spring components. So one of the component is the core container. So the dependency injection is being powered by this core container. Then AOP, aspect oriented programming. See, you may be curious that why we need core container. See, the main purpose of the core container is the dependency injection. Bean life cycle. Okay, so why you need each one of these, what is the advantage, we are just exploring in next couple of minutes. Okay, right. So the next thing is AOP, aspect oriented programming. Next, JDBC or ORM, basically it is related to the interaction with the underlying database. Okay, ORM is object relational mapping. So even Hibernate also you can integrate with the Spring framework. Got it? Okay. So you can use any ORM framework. So basically in a Spring framework, you can attach any other frameworks. You may be curious that how to attach other frameworks. Do not worry, just hold on. I will share you throughout the course. So the official website of the Spring framework is spring.io. And whichever are this web related are there, this is used to basically expose the REST API to the external world and Spring MVC and all these facilities. And you can see one module which is related to the test. Okay, basically this facilitates the testing of the whatever the Spring related code which you implement in the project. So these are the one more you can see as a transaction handling. This is basically to handle the transactions. As already known, transaction management involves commit and rollback. So earlier, whenever you wanted to commit and roll back, you had to manually make the calls for committing and rolling back any transactions. Spring architectures gives the advantage to you just by using some annotations which are readily provided by the Spring architecture. So what I want to tell is Spring is bit vast. It will take some time to understand. It is quite natural. You need to keep on repeatedly listening the lectures, practice, ask the questions. That is the way to get forward, to go forward. Do not get scared. Do not get worried. Fine. Let's go ahead and discuss each one. See, if you go back, you can see something as a core container. What is the main feature which is being exposed by the core container is it is DI, dependency injection, and bean. See what is a bean means? A bean is nothing but it is a Java object which is created by the Spring framework and given to you. So generally here we rarely create the objects. Rather, we depend on the Spring framework to create the object. Okay. So why I need to depend on Spring framework? Why can't I create means? That is what dependency injection. See, we just started with the dependency injection. This is not the end. Okay. So just get familiar with the names. That is enough as a part of this lecture. See, dependency injection promotes loose coupling in your architecture, in your application architecture. So when there is loose coupling, what is the advantage? So whenever you need to change any source code in future, because of any additions or changes in the business logic, you may need to change very minimal code. That is the advantage of loose coupling. Okay, that is one part. Next, aspect oriented programming. See, if you go back and see the diagram, so there is a AOP and aspects, both are same aspect oriented programming. So we have, so why we need aspect oriented programming? See, aspect oriented programming is basically helps in separating the cross cutting concerns from our application. So what is a cross cutting concern means? It is the duplication statements which you will be using again. Okay, so you may ask me, like, I am already doing an object oriented, do I need to go for aspect oriented? Means yes, with object oriented you are reducing the duplication of the code to one level, but by using aspect oriented still you can reduce to a great extent. Okay, so that is why I specified here in the red color, it reduces the duplication of the code. Okay, how? Just hold on, we have the lectures coming in the future. Next, here we are just visiting the list of the features of Spring Framework. Next is data access. See, all this is related to the data access. Fine. So you can use ORM frameworks such as Hibernate. You can club it with the Spring Framework so that your job becomes easy in saving the objects in the database and retrieving it. Okay. So that is what, see, minimizes the source code to interact with the databases. So mainly focus on this red color. See, if you are not convinced, like what is the purpose of this specific feature, I have highlighted it in the red color. Okay. Next, transaction management. See, before Spring, if you want to manage the transactions, you have to manually do the committing, rollback, and all that. You need to make that calls. But with the Spring, it has become very easy. You have to just use the annotation. That is, use @transactional or whichever. That specific method is in a specific transaction. Got it, right? So if some problem happens in between, any exception is thrown, automatically it is rolled back. So you need not manually write the code for committing and rollback. Got it? So when you use Spring, your code is reduced to a great extent. Okay. Of course, initially you will feel bit difficulty in learning the Spring and gaining the expertise, but that investment of time is well worth. Okay. The next thing is model view controller. That means you want to expose the REST APIs, and this REST APIs will be invoked by the client. Client can be a browser, it can be a mobile application, whichever. Okay. So if you go back and visit this, you can see something called a web. So basically this facilitates us in developing the REST APIs and MVC based components. Okay, there are some more features which can be directly part of Spring or Spring Boot. Anyhow, I will just mention the names and the purpose of it. Batch processing. See, batch processing means if you take any enterprise application, say for example payslips, you are working in some organization and there are thousands of employees working. At the end of the month, automatically the payslips of all these thousands of employees need to be automatically, it has to generate the payslips. Automatically it has to do the bank transfer. So does anybody go and generate the payslip manually? May not be. Okay, so you will create a batch program that will automatically get invoked on so and so date, okay, of the month, and it will generate the payslips and it will do the bank transfer. Okay, so batch processing, basically Spring has a module even for batch processing. Maybe it is not shown in the diagram. See, in the diagram of the Spring, only the main components have been highlighted. Still there are some more. Spring is quite vast. Okay, next, Spring security. See, Spring security, basically when you log into a website, you enter the username, password, and when you log in, the whatever the activities you perform depends upon the role of your, see, there can be admin role, there can be a normal user role. Okay, so basically all this role management, username, password, encrypting that, all this is taken care by the security. Okay, so you can use security even without Spring, but when you use with Spring security, the advantage is your security related code becomes very compact. That is the advantage. Okay, next, actuator. See, in a real enterprise application, there will be a number of servers which are working remotely, and maybe the browser will be making the REST API calls or whichever to that specific remote servers. So how do we know that that server is working fine? Is the memory is going down, or do we need to manually add some more servers? So how do we get all the details is by using the module called actuator. Even this is not specified in the diagram, okay, but this is available. Fine. Okay, so to cross check if the server is working fine or is there any problem in that. Next is messaging. See, messaging is basically you can say that it is the asynchronous way of communication between various components in the architecture. Okay, so you send the message. It can be a JSON or XML message, and so basically it is a publisher and subscriber. So you will be publishing that. There will be a number of subscribers to that. It will take the message. It will process. Okay. Say for example, I'll give one example. Let us assume you are checking out the shopping cart. So that once the checkout is done from your client, you may call the checkout REST API, which may take some time because checkout may have multiple things. It has to go and update the stock, that is the inventory. Then it has to intimate the shipping department. Then maybe it has to go and change, for example, something in the accounting. So what you do is you just send a message, and there will be other subscribers to these. Whoever are interested, they will take this message and do the required processing. Right. This is asynchronous way of communication, the loosely coupled way of communication. The advantage is eventually you can have additional subscribers for the same message. Okay, right. So once we have gone through all the major features in the Spring framework, okay, this is just we have gone through only the name of it and what is the purpose. So do not get scared. It will take some time to understand all the concepts. Have patience. But once you learn Spring framework with patience, you can learn any other frameworks of Java. I can say that even any other language. Okay, so do not worry. Invest your time in learning Spring framework. It is definitely well worth. If you have any questions, we will be glad to assist it. Thank you very much. Happy learning.